If you feel like your hair is getting longer but somehow looking thinner at the same time, then come listen up because I finally hit waist length after nearly 6 years of growing my hair. And that's when I noticed something wasn't quite right. My hair was getting longer, but my ends were thinning. And I knew if I didn't fix it now, then I would make it to tailbone length, yes, but with thin ends. So now I have to change something, and you probably know exactly what it is. But here's why this isn't as simple as you might think. The thinning that I'm experiencing isn't damaged or broken hair. There are minimal split ends, there's hardly any breakage, but the ends are simply just uneven. Now, uneven and thinner ends can result in more breakage. And I want to show you this quick demonstration that I saw African Hair God doing as well, aka Narada. And it's a really great demonstration of how thinning ends can affect our ends, even though the ends themselves aren't necessarily damaged. I have in my hand a strand of pasta, and if I were to apply a lot of pressure onto this, it would pretty much immediately break. Let's look. There we go. I've got the rest of it in my hand, okay? So that's what happens when it's just one strand of pasta. Compare that to all of this. I can actually barely apply much pressure to it. These are not breaking anytime soon because there's so many of the strands all together. So in the same way with our hair, when one strand is alone or when our ends are thinning, then the end of the hair is much more susceptible to breakage. Whereas when you have a lot of strands all together ending at the same point, it reduces breakage. So, do we have to get rid of these ends? Well, I believe there are two sides to the spectrum or the scale. And the question is, where do I want to be along this line? Now, I would say that on one end of the scale, there is Indigenous strands who does not trim her hair almost at all. I believe the last time she trimmed her hair, she said was 14 years ago. So we're going to call that the zero side of the scale. And then on the other side of this scale, the absolute opposite end is a person who desires and needs to trim their ends every 6 to 8 weeks because they want totally blunt ends. So we're going to call that a number 10 on the scale. So where would you put yourself along the line? I'm going to ask you to comment down below and let me know, where would you put yourself along this line? Now, for me, I would put myself at about a 6. And the reason I say that is because I remember saying on a recent video that even when I believe I get to my goal length of tailbone, then I did say that I would probably be trimming my hair more frequently to get my ends to be thicker and to keep my hair at that same length. So it does tell me that I do desire fuller ends, but I'm not that totally like hell bent on having absolutely blunt ends and they have to be that way all the time. So, answering the question, do we have to get rid of these thinning ends? And the answer is no. It really is a choice. Now, I got the advice from a professional stylist to cut off 2 inches of my hair, and I did agree. But I want to stress that I only made this decision because I put myself at a 6 on the scale. If I was a 0 or, 0 to 5, then I probably wouldn't trim those 2 inches off at all. I probably would leave it because, again, it is not damaged hair. But when it actually came to me doing it, to me actually trimming that 2 inches off, I couldn't do it. I was too overwhelmed, too anxious about undoing all of my progress. So instead of cutting it all at once, I started doing this instead, and it changed everything. Firstly, I was way too anxious about going to a stylist. Even though I highly recommend my stylist, honestly, she's one of my closest friends. She's never trimmed off more than I've wanted every time I've been to her. But for some reason, I was just anxious about potentially losing my progress at the hands of somebody else. You know, when it's your fault, it's like, it's fine, it's my fault. But when it's somebody else's fault, then I just wasn't looking forward to that. I was also too anxious to trim off 2 inches all at once myself. So, what I've been doing is for the past 8 weeks or so, I've been dusting my ends every time I retwist my hair. Now, I wash and retwist my hair every 2 weeks, and I've been trimming off around about half an inch each time, or maybe a bit less than half an inch. So that means that over those 8 weeks, I have pretty much taken off 2 inches. Now, most people think once the thinning is trimmed off, then they're good. And hopefully that is the case. But sometimes that's where the problem lies because cutting it off and fixing the root issue are two completely different things. If our ends keep thinning out even after trimming, now that is a sign to us. It is a telltale sign that we're not actually fixing the cause. And so here's what some of you have thought was the cause and why I personally believe it's wrong. Firstly, one or two of you commented on the fact that I have a Rev Air and have thought that the Revair is causing damage to many people's hair. I looked into this myself and I only saw one person on YouTube talking about it. I myself haven't noticed any damage from the Revair, and I've probably used my Revair maybe twice, maximum 3 times since I've had it. And I think I've had it for about a year and a half now. Something else that just seems a bit inconsistent to me as well regarding the Revair that just doesn't make sense is when you use the Revair, you have to put all of your hair into the vacuum part of it, not just the ends. And so it doesn't quite make sense that only the ends would be thinning when all of my hair goes into the vacuum. So I don't believe that the Revair has caused any damage to my hair. Secondly, another person commented that maybe my use of flaxseed gel hasn't been helpful to me, and potentially that is why my ends were thinning. Again, totally don't believe that this is correct because I've been using flaxseed gel since 2021. Now, I started my hair journey, growing my hair from shaved in 2020. So, really, I've been using it for 4 to 5 years of my hair growth. Clearly, it is one of the massive things that has helped me to retain length. I'm only beginning to see this thinning literally over the past maybe 6 months or so. Yeah, maybe 5, 6 months or so. And so it's just not consistent. It doesn't make sense. I also just decided to look back at some of my earlier videos, and one of my videos, I was looking at it in awe. Honestly, I was like, wow, my hair is pretty much thick from root to tip. I was loving it. And that was kind of around end of 2023, 2024. And so, again, around that time, I was consistently using flaxseed gel. So that really tells me that flaxseed gel definitely hasn't been the cause of my ends thinning. I'm showing another video from April 2025, and again you can see that my hair is generally looking pretty thick and full from the roots to the tip. So if it's not the Revair and it's not flaxseed gel, then what could it be? One option that many of you have said in the comments, and I believe you've all said it in a supportive way, and so thank you for that, is could it be vitamin deficiency, whether that may be vitamin D, iron. Typically, as Black people, I don't know what it is, but we all seem to be deficient in vitamin D. And as women as well, often our iron is low. So it could well be that. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't been to get my bloods checked. I am not one of those people that tend to run to the doctors at the sign of every little thing. Not saying there's anything wrong with that, but just for me personally, it's just not something that I typically do. So, that of course is an internal thing. But the other thing I believe is a big factor to why thinning has been occurring in my ends is this. I strongly believe that I should have kept up with dusting my hair regularly. Really quick one, if you're enjoying the content of this video, then I'm going to ask you to click the subscribe button because it just lets me know and it lets YouTube know that this is valuable. I remember in 2023, I was dusting my hair maybe every 6 to 8 weeks or so, which is weird because I'm typically not one of those people that want to be trimming my hair every 6 to 8 weeks. I certainly wouldn't go to a professional every 6 to 8 weeks. Absolutely not. But I was dusting off just a little bit of scraggly ends every time I twisted my hair. And as I just mentioned, in end of 2023, 2024, my ends I felt were they looked quite thick and quite full. And so dusting my ends that often clearly was working quite well for me. However, going into 2024 and beyond, so since then, I reduced the amount that I was dusting because, of course, I wasn't retaining as much length. So in 2024, I only was dusting my hair twice a year. Now, that was a drastic change. And I started replacing dusting my ends with more so search and destroy. So since 2024, whenever I'm using hair shears in my hair, it's usually to get rid of split ends, to get rid of single strand knots, or if I notice any particular breakage. It hasn't really been dusting my hair that much. And I 100% absolutely believe that because of doing search and destroy, I am then affecting the ends of my hair. What I mean by that is the ends of my hair are then of course going to be so many different lengths because I'm doing search and destroy. So those are the two things that I believe it could be potentially vitamin deficiency or and also not dusting my hair enough. Now, just to know what may have changed in my routine recently, because there are quite a few changes that have occurred over the past year. What has changed? I would definitely say around about 6 months to a year, I have become so much more busier. And so that has meant I'm doing less DIYs. That's my flaxseed gel, shea butter mix, African black soap shampoo. I was trying to do henna and amla treatments. I didn't really take off with that. And also, a staple in my routine has been Jamaican black castor oil. Haven't even had a chance to get to the shop and repurchase. So, a lot of those things were, apart from the henna and amla, but they were staples in my routine. And just being busier, I hadn't really been able to keep up with some of those DIYs. The Jamaican black castor oil isn't a DIY, by the way, but those are some key things. Another thing that has potentially changed in my routine is big life changes. And with those big life changes, possibly has come more stress, maybe not eating as well, and maybe not sleeping as well. So these are some of the things that could have impacted and affected my hair when it comes to the thinning at the ends. Now, earlier I mentioned that I'm towards the middle of the scale when it comes to trimming my hair. I don't want to be trimming necessarily every 6 to 8 weeks, but I also am not the type of person to not trim my hair at all. But if you are interested to see what someone's hair looks like who hardly ever trims her hair at all, then watch this video next. It's on the screen now.